Hello everyone, welcome once again to our YouTube channel. Today we will be discussing cartilages. And our presenter will be Josephat Kimani. Remember, the name of the YouTube channel is Anatomy Leaks channel. So we'll be discussing cartilages and what is the scope of the session today. We'll be discussing the definition of cartilage. Then we check on the various types of cartilages. We check the locations of various cartilages, and then we talk a little bit about chondrogenesis, cartilage growth, and also cartilage repair. So what is a cartilage? A cartilage is a solid, pliable form of connective tissue. Remember, a cartilage is a connective tissue. It's a specialized connective tissue with chondrocytes and extracellular matrix. And remember, these cells, you won't have only chondrocytes alone. You will also have some other cell types. You'll have fibroblasts, you'll have chondroclasts, you'll have chondrocytes themselves. And in addition to that, now you'll have this extracellular matrix, which will have fibers. And it will also have some other multi-adhesive proteins that we talk about. So the major cell types that we find in these cartilages will be chondrocytes. And then you'll also find extracellular matrix, which forms 95% of these cartilages. These cells will be located in lacunae, and you can see a sample cells in lacunae. For example, you can appreciate these cells here are cells which are found in the lacunae. So these two cells, these chondrocytes, are found inside the lacunae. This chondroblast here is the one that gives rise to the chondrocytes. So remember, chondrocytes is the one that gives rise to the chondrocytes. So chondrocytes, they are the mature cells, and then the chondroblasts are the cells that provide these chondrocytes. What are these characteristics of the cartilages that we're talking about, and where do you find these cartilages? First of all, cartilages are avascular, so they don't have blood vessels going directly to supply the cartilages. In addition to that, these cartilages have their nutrition by diffusion. Given the fact that they are avascular, they will receive nutrients via diffusion. Also, in addition to that, they will receive nutrition by very small blood vessels that are found on the perichondria, on the surrounding environment of the cartilages. So remember, the surrounding environment has some blood vessels. So those small blood vessels provide nutrients, provide oxygen, also remove waste, remove carbon dioxide. First of all, the fission, and then those small blood vessels also will help in terms of nutrition. Then the components of these cartilages will be chondrocytes and other cell types, as we talked about, for example, fibroblasts, chondroblasts, and then chondroclasts also, which break down the cartilages, and then you'll also have extracellular matrix. So the two major components of cartilages will be chondrocytes as the cells, and then extracellular matrix, forming 95% of what we will be talking about today, that is the cartilages. Then some of the cartilages, some of the types of the cartilages that we talk about might have perichondrium. Perichondrium is the outer part of the cartilages, which will have some connective tissue, which will have some two parts, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. What are then these functions of the cartilages? So these functions of cartilages will be tailored according to the location of the cartilages. So, for example, the cartilages that is found on the joints will act like shock absorbers of the body. In addition to that, some types of cartilages, which you'll see and also be referred as epiphyseal growth plates, will be there to help in growth of bones, growth of the body itself. So some cartilages will be essential in growth of long bones and also in development of bones. Some other cartilages, will be found in the respiratory system, we'll find that we'll have hyaline cartilage. This hyaline cartilage that is found in the respiratory system maintains the respiratory system, the bronchus, the trachea in their position, allowing them to remain open to allow oxygen to move in and out. So the gaseous substance will be able to move in and out by the help of cartilages, which provide the structural support to the respiratory system. The three types of cartilages. So at this image, you can appreciate we have three types of cartilage. We're starting with fibrocartilage, hyaline cartilage, and elastic cartilage. At this point, you can appreciate that fibrocartilage is less cellular. You can appreciate hyaline cartilage is kind of uniform distributed. Then elastic cartilage has dense distribution of elastic fibers. In addition to that, we'll find that it will also be having larger cells in lacunae, unlike in hyaline cartilage. So we'll discuss this deeper, but in addition to that, you need to appreciate that fibrocartilage has collagen type 1, that is very much examinable. Fibrocartilage has collagen type 1. Hyaline cartilage has collagen type 2. And then elastic cartilage has elastic fibers. So, point to appreciate is that all these cartilages will have collagen, but the most abundant type of cartilage, the most abundant type of collagen in fibrocartilage is collagen type 1. The most abundant type of collagen in hyaline cartilage is collagen type 2. And the most abundant fiber in elastic cartilage is elastic fibers. So that means that this fibrocartilage will have collagen type 1, collagen type 2, type 9, type 10. They will have all those types of cartilages, but the most abundant in fibrocartilage is collagen type 1. Hyaline cartilage will have collagen type 2 as the most abundant, and then elastic cartilage will have elastic fibers as the most abundant fiber. We'll also appreciate that these cartilages will have different characteristics, as we'll appreciate. So as you're looking on our light microscopy, what are you supposed to appreciate on a cartilage? So cells in lacunae. Remember, cells in lacunae, as we saw in an earlier slide, is that they can either be found in a bone or a cartilage. So when you see now cells in lacunae, you narrow down to bone and cartilage, and then you go further now to the cross section of the slide that you'll be looking on. So on those lacunae, are the lacunae bigger or smaller? If they are smaller, that's hyaline cartilage. If they're bigger, that's elastic cartilage. Then you check on the cellularity of the tissue. Of course, at this point, you can appreciate that fibrocartilage has less cells, so it's less cellular, unlike other hyaline cartilage and elastic cartilage. Amount of matrix, we'll find that elastic cartilage will have less matrix. Matrix morphology, is it uniform? Is it uniformly distributed? Is it haphazardly distributed? But we'll appreciate in hyaline cartilage, it will have uniform matrix. In addition to that, we'll appreciate that presence of perichondrium is very important. Perichondrium will be found in hyaline cartilage and elastic cartilage, and we find that fibrocartilage won't have perichondrium. But a point to appreciate is that hyaline cartilage, which we are seeing at this point, hyaline cartilage will be having fibrocartilage, will be having perichondrium, and this perichondrium will only be found in all types of hyaline cartilage, but not in articular cartilage. Remember, articular cartilage is an example of hyaline cartilage. So histological features will appreciate uniform matrix. This is a matrix, you can see it's uniformly distributed. Then variable lacunae. So you can appreciate this, you have variable lacunae in the cells. Then you can appreciate perichondrium. So this is a perichondrium. This is a perichondrium. Remember, the perichondrium has two parts, has an outer fibrous part and an inner cellular part, as you can see in this. So an outer fibrous part and an inner cellular part. So those are the two components of the perichondrium. So histological features of hyaline cartilage: uniform matrix, which is well distributed, variable size of lacunae. Then you'll appreciate presence of perichondrium, which has two parts: outer fibrous, inner cellular. What then is the distribution of this cartilage? What is the distribution of hyaline cartilage? Hyaline cartilage will be found in the respiratory system, that is the airways. We'll talk about the bronchus, talk about the trachea. We'll have hyaline cartilage to provide the support. We'll also have articular cartilage. So remember, the articular cartilage will be found in joints, and this articular cartilage, we won't be having perichondrium. That is the only exemption of hyaline cartilage without perichondrium. It will also be found in the costal cartilages on the ribs. We'll also have fetal skeleton. Fetal skeleton is made up of hyaline cartilage, as you'll appreciate that hyaline cartilage is the one that undergoes endochondral ossification to form the skeleton. Then you'll also have the epiphyseal growth cartilage. So physeal cartilage, remember the epiphyseal growth plate will be having the physeal cartilage, as we'll see in the next slide. So these are the locations, the distributions of the hyaline cartilage, as we can appreciate. So we talked about the physeal growth plate, the epiphyseal growth plate. So the epiphyseal growth plate is a residual hyaline cartilage that is found on the proximal and distal end of bones. So we can appreciate this is a histological nature of bone, the histological nature of a bone, and now this is the epiphyseal growth plate, the residual hyaline cartilage. So this hyaline cartilage will remain functional as long as the bone continues to grow. And then we'll appreciate that this epiphyseal growth plate is the one that now leads to development of bones, to lead to elongation of bones. We need to narrow down on this epiphyseal growth plate because ideally it has various cell layers. This is epiphysis, this is metaphysis. A point of appreciation that it will grow from this part. So this is a reserve zone or the resting zone. Then the hyaline cartilage will undergo proliferation. So this is a zone of proliferation. Then the cells that have proliferated will undergo hypertrophy. After the cells undergoing hypertrophy, you'll have deposition of calcium phosphates, provision of calcification. Now the hypertrophic cells will undergo calcification, and then now you'll have the formation of the bone. So the calcified bone will be found at this point. So the reserve zone or the resting zone, the proliferation zone. So remember the proliferation will happen under mitosis. Then you'll have the hypertrophic zone, where now the proliferated cells will undergo hypertrophy. And then you'll have deposition of calcium on the hypertrophic cells to give you the calcified bone. So those are the layers of the epiphyseal growth plate. These are the layers will be asked in exam. So be able to appreciate the various layers of the epiphyseal growth plate. Remember, the epiphyseal growth plate is the one that is called the residual hyaline cartilage that is found on the proximal and the distal end of bones. Elastic cartilage. Elastic cartilage at this point is a very important, like by just the word itself, elastic. So it has elastic properties. It has elastic fibers. You can appreciate these are the elastic fibers. They're kind of darker staining at this point. These elastic fibers are the ones that now allow the recoil property of the elastic cartilage. Then you'll find that it will have larger lacunae. You can appreciate these lacunae, a very large one. Then you'll appreciate perichondrium. This is a perichondrium with the two parts as we talked about. For the distribution of elastic cartilage, you'll find that most of the location of this elastic cartilage, it will start with an E. So epiglottis, ear pinna, eustachian tube. The exemption is now the nasal cavity, which starts at second by an E, but now the rest, the epiglottis, the ear pinna, the eustachian tube, the nasal ala, all of them will have elastic cartilage. Point to appreciate is that the elastic cartilage will have that recoil capability of going back to its normal position. For the fibrocartilage, remember fibrocartilage, you say it has collagen type 1 as the most abundant. This fibrocartilage, just the word itself, fibro, tells you that it's highly fibrous. It will have few cells, unlike hyaline cartilage and elastic cartilage, which had more cells. They were hypercellular, they were more they had a higher cellularity. Then they lack perichondrium. So the cells themselves, they lack perichondrium. What's the distribution of this fibrocartilage? In the intervertebral discs, we usually have annulus fibrosus. The outer part of the intervertebral discs, we have the annulus fibrosus. The knee menisci have fibrocartilage. Then you have some part of a tendon which joins it to the bone that has fibrocartilage. And then you have the acetabular labrum and the glenoid labrum. The acetabular labrum is found on the hip joint, and then the glenoid labrum is found on the shoulder joint. So all those will be having fibrocartilage. The simplest way to understand them is that elastic cartilage is the most flexible one found in the ear. Hyaline cartilage is the second most flexible, found on the nose and the ribs. And then you'll also have fibrocartilage, which is the less flexible, which is found in the knee and the vertebrae. So at this point, you can appreciate the histological structures of the various cartilages. We have specialized connective tissues. So these ones now, the cartilages, will allow growth. And at this point, actually, we talked about their positional and interstitial growth. So remember, the cartilages usually grow by a positional and interstitial growth. So a positional happens around the perichondrium on the ends of the cartilage. So for example, you can appreciate this is a cell that is undergoing mitosis. Then interstitial happens inside the cartilage. So the cells divides. The cells divides inside the cartilage. So you can appreciate this cell is dividing, has two nuclei showing the division that is happening. So by interstitial growth, we mean this is a growth that happens within the cartilage. This enables the increase in length of the cartilage. Then a positional happens on the extreme ends of the cartilage. For the healing and repair of the cartilages, we'll appreciate that the cartilages are avascular in nature, and due to that, they will have limited nature of growth, limited nature of repair. So, but in addition to that, healing will happen no matter what. Healing will happen due to production, by production of heavy connective tissue. And this healing will happen due to presence of pluripotential progenitor cells. These pluripotential progenitor cells are the ones that now will form chondroblasts, chondroblasts forming chondrocytes, and then also these pluripotential progenitor cells, which will give rise to chondroblasts, will also give the chondroclast, which will be there to ideally break down the cartilages into various tissues. Then hyaline cartilage is prone to calcification, and this ideally can be pathological. It has been associated with rheumatoid arthritis, and given the fact that we talked that hyaline cartilage might be found in some joints, it might lead to hardening of joints, rheumatoid arthritis, and also it has been associated with rheumatoid arthritis ideally, so which is now under research. But this calcification will be present in hyaline cartilage majorly. A sample of some few questions we can appreciate is how now a question might be framed histologically. A question can become and classify the type of epithelium shown. So at this point, you can appreciate it's highly cellular. It's highly cellular. You can appreciate cells in lacunae. Then the lacunae are very big, they're large. So cells in lacunae, you can appreciate also there's some fibers, elastic fibers, which are darkly staining. So at this point, this is elastic fiber. So reason you can appreciate cells in lacunae. The lacunae are bigger, are larger in size. Then you can appreciate elastic fibers in the matrix. Another question, classify the cartilage shown and give 3 reasons. So at this point, you can appreciate the cells. They are less cellular, so you can appreciate the less cellularity of this cartilage. Then you can also appreciate that you have some of the regularity, the fibers. So you can appreciate the regularity of the fibers. In addition to that, you can appreciate the cells in lacunae, the chondrocytes, the cells in lacunae. So this gives us a characteristic of fibrocartilage. So fibrocartilage regularity, you can appreciate some of the fibers are somewhat parallel to each other. You can appreciate less cellular. Then you can also appreciate it has collagen type 1 cells. Collagen, sorry. These are sample of sample questions that you can be asked. At this point, this is fibrocartilage. This is elastic cartilage. This elastic cartilage. This elastic cartilage. So you can appreciate the highly fibrous nature of the fibrocartilage. You can appreciate the high cellularity nature of the elastic fibers, elastic cartilage, sorry, with elastic fibers. And now this is elastic cartilage, showing you the elastic fibers very prominently. And then at this point, you can appreciate this point, this is the perichondrium. So this is a perichondrium cells. You can appreciate the perichondrium. Remember, the perichondrium has 2 parts. It has the outer fibrous and the inner cellular component. This is another type of cartilage. So I'll send you the slides so that you can be able to go through it at your own time. So, but make sure you classify these cartilages into various types of cartilages. Another point to appreciate is that so those are the various types of cartilage. We can also appreciate at this point you have high elastic cartilage. You can appreciate the highest cellularity and also the stain itself. So this is elastic cartilage. This is hyaline cartilage. This is hyaline cartilage also. And then at this point, you can appreciate the epiphyseal growth plate. So these are bone here, these are bone here, and then you can appreciate that this is a epiphyseal growth plate. So you can actually appreciate the various cell layers. So you can appreciate this is a resting zone, the zone of proliferation, a zone of hypertrophy, a zone of calcification, and then there's a calcified bone. So the various cell layers of the epiphyseal growth plates. So we can have a recap of what we've talked about for the various cell type of the various cartilages. We can start with elastic cartilage. So elastic cartilage, you can remember its location. We talked about the ear pinna. We talked about the external acoustic meatus. We talked about the eustachian tube itself. We also talked about the epiglottis. So what's the function of the elastic fibers? Elastic fibers, they provide flexibility. That's the reason why those locations that we talked about, they are elastic. They have that recoil capacity. Then you also have perichondria. They also have perichondrium. Does elastic fibers undergo calcification? Majorly, no, we talked about hyaline cartilage, which undergoes calcification. So the major cell types in elastic fibers, of course, we talk about the chondroblasts, the chondrocytes, and the chondroblasts also. But the major cell types, you start first of all with the chondrocytes, and then you go to the chondroblasts, which will give rise to the chondrocytes. The collagen type 2 is the most abundant type of collagen. So remember the fibrocartilage, it will have, this is fibrocartilage, it will have collagen type 1 as the most abundant type of cartilage. Yeah, so let's talk about fibrocartilage. we give a summary of fibrocartilage. So this fibrocartilage, we talked about its location, majorly being in the pubic symphysis, the intervertebral discs, and some parts in the articular discs of sternoclavicular joint and also in the temporomandibular joint. Remember, sternoclavicular joints and temporomandibular joints are special types of joints because they have fibrocartilage as the articular cartilage in it. So this fibrocartilage will resist force, to resist stress. And that's the reason why those places, those locations, they won't undergo stress. So in the intervertebral disc, the annulus fibrosus will have fibrous fibrocartilage, and that's the reason why you can't have deformity of the intervertebral discs. Does it undergo calcification? Not majorly. So the one that undergoes calcification majorly, talked about hyaline cartilage, but this one will undergo some bit of calcification, but now this one will occur during bone repair. So colors as in bone repair. So that's a summary on fibrocartilage. You can have a summary. So we talked about this hyaline cartilage, this elastic cartilage, this elastic cartilage. A good summary, a good image of hyaline cartilage is this one. So for the hyaline cartilage, where will you find it? In the fetal skeleton. Remember, bones develop via endochondral ossification. Also remember, some membranes can form intermembranous ossification, but at this point, when talking about cartilage, we'll be talking about endochondral ossification. So the fetal skull, the fetal bones, the long bones will develop due to endochondral ossification. Due to formation, the hyaline cartilage will form the cartilaginous models. These cartilaginous models are the ones that will form the long bones. So the fetal skeleton, the epiphyseal growth plates, the articular surfaces of synovial joints. We talked about the cartilages of the nasal cavity, the larynx, that is a thyroid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage, the cuneiform cartilage. All those will have the hyaline types of cartilages. Does it have perichondrium? At this point, you can appreciate it is a perichondrium with the 2 points, outer fibrous and the inner cellular. Then this hyaline cartilage you talked about, it will undergo calcification. So it will undergo calcification. The major cell types, chondroblast and chondrocytes. Another point to also appreciate is that this perichondria will also be found in all types of hyaline cartilage, all examples of hyaline cartilage, but it won't be found in articular cartilage. So articular cartilage is a hyaline type of cartilage without perichondria. Also remember, this hyaline cartilage will have majorly collagen type 2. Elastic fibers will have collagen type 2, but also in addition to that, it will also have elastic fibers. But fibrocartilage will have majorly collagen type 1. In addition to that, it will also have collagen type 2, but the major fibers that will be found there, collagen fibers, will be collagen type 1 in the fibrocartilage. So those are the various and the summary of the various types of cartilages. Make sure you go through the various slides, you understand them, you talk about the characteristics of various types of cartilage, be able to go through various questions, and be able to identify the various types of cartilages as shown in the slides. So with that, have a good day. Thank you.